Most people live inside a comfortable illusion. They believe they see reality clearly, that their judgments are accurate, and that their emotions are justified. Yet the Stoics warned that the human mind is not a mirror of truth, but a battlefield of impressions, fears, and unchecked assumptions. You are not disturbed by events themselves, Marcus Aurelius wrote, but by the judgments you attach to them. This single sentence dismantles modern arrogance. It exposes how fragile human certainty truly is. Stoicism was never designed to make life easier. It was forged to make the mind unbreakable. Born in courts, exile, war camps, and political betrayal, this philosophy trained men to see through deception, starting with their own. The Stoic does not seek comfort, applause, or moral validation. He seeks clarity. And clarity is dangerous because it removes excuses, illusions, and emotional dependency. This video is not designed to motivate you temporarily. It is designed to recalibrate how you think, judge, and move through the world. These 8 lessons are brutal because they strip away false beliefs that feel pleasant but weaken the mind. If applied, they will make you harder to manipulate, slower to anger, and more precise in judgment. This is not self-help. This is mental discipline. And once you see the world through this lens, you do not return to innocence. You return to command. To become dangerously smart is not to become clever with words, facts, or arguments. It is to see patterns beneath appearances and to remain unmoved by emotional noise. Stoicism trains this capacity by separating what is within your control from what is not, and by demanding ruthless honesty about both. Most people outsource their thinking to emotions, social approval, or cultural scripts. The Stoic refuses this surrender. The core idea is simple, but demanding. You are responsible for your judgments, your responses, and your character. Everything else is external. Praise, insult, loss, opportunity, and rejection all exist outside your command. When you confuse externals with identity, you become predictable and manipulable. When you anchor identity to discipline and reason, you become stable. This philosophy elevates your identity from reactor to observer. You no longer ask, how do I feel about this? You ask, what is actually happening here? That single shift creates psychological distance. Distance creates choice. Choice creates power. A dangerously smart individual is not aggressive or loud. He is calm, precise, and internally governed. He sees himself as a steward of reason, not a servant of impulse. Lesson 1. The first brutal lesson is this. Most people are not thinking, they are reacting. What appears as opinion is often emotional reflex disguised as logic. The Stoics understood that impressions strike the mind automatically, but assent is optional. Yet few pause long enough to examine what they accept as truth. Consider how quickly offense is taken. A comment, a delay, a tone, and the mind instantly constructs a story of disrespect or threat. That story feels real, but it is untested. Epictetus warned that when you are offended, you have already surrendered control. You accepted an impression without trial. A dangerously smart person slows this moment. He does not deny emotion, but he refuses to obey it blindly. He interrogates it. Is this interpretation necessary? Is it useful? Is it aligned with reason? Most emotional suffering collapses under this scrutiny. The harsh truth is that if you are constantly upset, you are mentally undisciplined. This is not an insult. It is a diagnosis. Discipline begins when you realize that peace is not granted by others behaving well, but by you judging well. Until then, your emotions will continue to think for you. Lesson 2. The second lesson reveals an uncomfortable reality. Most human behavior is driven by self-interest, not stated values. People speak of loyalty, fairness, and principle, yet act according to convenience and benefit. The Stoics were not cynical about this. They were realistic. Marcus Aurelius advised himself to expect selfishness, envy, and inconsistency from others, not with bitterness, but with preparedness. When you expect people to act against their nature, you suffer unnecessarily. When you understand incentives, you gain clarity. Watch patterns, not declarations. Notice who remains present when there is nothing to gain. Observe how respect shifts with status, utility, or fear. This does not mean becoming paranoid or hostile. It means becoming perceptive. A dangerously smart individual does not personalize predictable behavior. He does not demand moral purity from flawed creatures. He structures his expectations accordingly. This creates emotional resilience. Betrayal hurts less when you understood the possibility beforehand. The Stoic does not withdraw from society. He engages it without illusion. He knows that trust is built slowly, tested by time, and confirmed by consistency. Wisdom is not assuming the worst. It is being prepared for reality. Lesson 3. The third lesson is aimed inward, and it is the most uncomfortable. You are not as honest with yourself as you believe. The ego is a masterful editor. It reframes weakness as preference, fear as morality, and avoidance as wisdom. Stoicism demands the opposite: brutal self-examination. Seneca warned that the mind hides from itself. It invents stories to preserve comfort. You tell yourself you are patient, but you avoid confrontation. You claim independence, but you fear disapproval. These narratives feel protective, but they keep you stagnant. A dangerously smart person treats his own mind as a suspect witness. He questions motives. He examines patterns of behavior rather than intentions. He asks why he repeats choices that contradict his stated goals. This is not self-hatred, it is self-clarity. Without honesty, discipline is impossible. You cannot correct what you refuse to see. The Stoic trains himself to observe internal resistance without judgment, then act despite it. Growth begins the moment you stop negotiating with your weaknesses and start naming them accurately. Clarity precedes strength. Illusion precedes collapse. Lesson 4. Envy is one of the most revealing emotions and one of the most denied. The Stoics viewed envy not as a flaw in others, but as information about the self. When another person's success disturbs you, it exposes unfulfilled desire or wounded pride. Most people disguise envy as criticism. They minimize achievements, question motives, or highlight flaws. This provides temporary relief, but deepens internal conflict. Marcus Aurelius advised to admire excellence openly, without resentment, because another's success does not diminish your capacity. A dangerously smart individual uses envy as a mirror. He asks, what exactly triggered discomfort? Is it status, freedom, recognition, or discipline? This transforms envy from poison into instruction. Resentment fades when you understand that life is not withholding something owed to you. It is simply responding to effort, timing, and chance. The Stoic focuses on what can be cultivated internally, not on comparisons externally. When you stop resenting others for embodying what you have not built, you reclaim energy. That energy, directed inward, becomes progress. Envy ignored weakens you. Envy examined sharpens you. Lesson 5. Influence rarely announces itself. It operates quietly through suggestion, repetition, and emotional leverage. The Stoics were acutely aware of how easily the mind absorbs external narratives without consent. To remain sovereign, you must recognize hidden agendas. People influence to gain validation, control, resources, or reassurance. Institutions influence to maintain order or profit. None of this is inherently evil, but it becomes dangerous when unseen. Epictetus advised constant vigilance over what you allow into your mind, because thoughts shape character. A dangerously smart individual listens without surrendering judgment. He notices framing. He observes which emotions are being provoked. Fear, guilt, urgency, and outrage are common tools of manipulation. This awareness creates calm distance. You are no longer pulled into manufactured urgency or borrowed outrage. You decide deliberately what deserves attention and action. Mental sovereignty is not isolation. It is selective engagement. When you control your attention, you control your trajectory. The Stoic does not fight every influence. He simply refuses unconscious obedience. That refusal alone restores power. Lesson 6. Words are cheap. Patterns are expensive. The most important lesson Stoicism offers is to judge by repeated behavior, not verbal intention. People reveal themselves over time through consistency, not explanation. Promises are easy to make when consequences are distant. Apologies are easy when accountability is low. The Stoic watches what happens when pressure appears. That is when character surfaces. A dangerously smart individual does not argue about potential. He observes evidence. He does not cling to hope when patterns contradict it. This is not pessimism. It is respect for reality. Applying this principle inward is equally important. You are what you repeatedly do, not what you plan, announce, or intend. Discipline is not proven in motivation, but in follow-through. This lesson removes confusion. It simplifies judgment. It prevents emotional bargaining with false narratives. When actions and words diverge, the Stoic believes actions. Clarity may feel cold, but it prevents prolonged self-deception. In relationships, work, and self-mastery, patterns are the truth. Everything else is noise. Lesson 7. Comfort is the most socially accepted form of weakness. It promises safety while quietly eroding capability. The Stoics warn that ease dulls the mind and softens character. Growth requires friction. Discipline is not punishment. It is preparation. Voluntary discomfort trains the nervous system to remain steady under stress. Cold, hunger, silence, effort, and restraint were all practiced deliberately by Stoics to reduce dependency on conditions. A dangerously smart individual does not chase pleasure or flee difficulty. He chooses challenges that strengthen judgment and will. He understands that comfort, when unearned or excessive, breeds entitlement and fragility. This does not mean rejecting enjoyment. It means not being governed by it. When you can function without constant stimulation, validation, or ease, you become adaptable. The Stoic trains for adversity before it arrives. When difficulty appears, it is familiar territory, not a shock. Comfort seeks to protect you from life. Discipline prepares you to face it. Only one of these builds strength. Lesson 8. Memento mori. Remember, you will die. This was not a morbid fixation, but a focusing tool. The awareness of mortality strips triviality from the mind and clarifies priority. When you remember that time is finite, petty grievances lose power. Procrastination becomes harder to justify. You begin to act with intention rather than drift. Seneca wrote that life is long enough if used well, but most squander it in distraction. A dangerously smart individual uses death as a compass, not a threat. He asks whether today's actions align with a life worth respecting. This question cuts through noise instantly. Mortality humbles ambition without extinguishing it. It redirects effort toward what endures. Character, integrity, and contribution outlast applause and resentment. When you live as if each day is borrowed, you stop postponing discipline. You stop arguing with reality. You move deliberately. Death does not make life meaningless, it makes it precise. These 8 lessons are not meant to impress you. They are meant to restructure how you think. To be dangerously smart is to be calm under pressure, resistant to manipulation, honest with yourself, and disciplined in action. This is the Stoic ideal. You are not here to control the world. You are here to govern yourself within it. When judgment is clear, emotions settle. When discipline is consistent, confidence becomes quiet and unshakable. Do not rush to share these ideas. Apply them. Observe patterns, train restraint, question impressions, reduce dependency on comfort. Remember your mortality. Let others remain distracted. If this way of thinking resonates, you already know what to do. Continue refining your mind. Choose depth over noise. Subscribe if you intend to walk this path seriously, and leave a comment not of praise but of commitment. Stoicism is not consumed. It is practiced.